born in South Korea. They're our favorite sport, well, besides competitive video games, is baseball. So when I came to America, I was happily surprised to find out that Americans love baseball too. I love sitting in the stands cheering for my favorite team, and I love how I have to pay so much for a tiny hot dog. But most of all, I love the idea of hitting things with a big stick, making millions of dollars. But the commentators, no matter what stadium they're in, all sounded the same. Stereotypically American. So when I began learning English, I developed this obsession to perfect my English pronunciations. You see, more often than not, we judge people based on the tone and the rhythm of their voice. And when we do not fit into the standard ideal of speaking, we are seen as lesser. So today, let's examine the causes and see how we've dropped the ball. Next, we'll see how the effect strikes people that are the most vulnerable. And finally, we'll hit a home run straight out of the park and find some solutions. The origin of baseball started as a humble game played on sandlots before turning into the game that we know today. Like the progression of baseball, the American accent has developed over the past century. With the advent of media, there suddenly became a need for speakers to appeal across all regions. So speakers from the 1970s to the 1990s, like Walter Cronkite, Dan Rather, and Tom Brokaw, began creating speaking styles that sounded vanilla, clean and articulate with no distinctive regional accent. Teddy Wayne from the New York Times articulates that some of the most influential speakers have NPR voice, people who speak like Ira Glass, host of This American Life. The problem is, people that are out of that perfect range are graded lower. This happened in the 1928 presidential election, where New York Governor and Democratic nominee Alfred E. Smith was ridiculed for his harsh New York accent and thought to be sloppy and unrefined. Oftentimes, how we use our voice is a learned behavior, something that was installed to us in our early stages of our education. John R. Rickford, linguistics professor at Stanford University, explains how education administrators spent millions trying to teach us standard English. Eventually, the concept of a unified accent became an ideal, and it is pervaded to this day, which made us think accents take more to understand. But researchers at Washington University at St. Louis explain, don't leave to blame the accent. Even though people don't recognize accents, accents don't make it harder to understand. Minorities were restricted into a separate baseball league until Jackie Robinson, the first African-American player, went into the major leagues in 1947. It's not hard to find an example where people were being judged because of the way they spoke. Take the George Zimmerman trial, where the primary witness was a young African woman named Rachel Jeantel, who was slammed by media critics because of the way she spoke. Zimmerman's attorney aggressively asked her if she even spoke English, and the jury even told CNN that Jeantel wasn't credible because of the way she spoke. But things started to change when radio host Tom Joyner stated, not only was the attorney not listening to her, but I think we all weren't listening to the Rachel Jeantels of the world. You see, when we do not meet the standard ideal of speaking, not only we are seen as a less credible witness, but a less credible person. I had a lot of roadblocks in my life. To bring me up to date, I was born in South Korea. I came to Canada 3 years ago. I compete in the United States, and I take French. So let's just say it has taken me a while to adapt to the proper way to speak. And I'm not alone. My experience is repeated all day with others who are subjective to measures that they talk funny. But I have to ask, is this simply a matter of curiosity, or are we trained to dislike the unfamiliar? Discrimination in baseball began to ease up when the minorities became the majority of our best athletes. In order to stop grading ourselves on others, first of all, we have to recognize how we evaluate and choose our metric for ourselves. But a big part is to recognize that everyone has their own metric. And even if they're not the same metrics, you have to realize that you cannot change a person's values. But secondly, remember that we are the melting pot. Amy Chua, the author of the book The Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother, once said, "Do you know what a foreign accent is? It's a sign of bravery." Even though I'm a fan of baseball, I still believe that people can love watching a game of it. So, the next time someone approaches you with a slightly askew voice or a vaguely different speaking style, let's remember that not all of us speaks fluidly, the way Bill Clinton speaks, choppy, the way George W. Bush speaks, bombardingly, the way Donald Trump speaks, or incorrectly, the way Dan Quayle speaks. As we battered up and saw how we've dropped the ball, struck people, and hit a home run, let's take a time to think how not to judge people within seconds of meeting them. Actress Salma Hayek, who became a powerful actress despite her struggle with her accent, once said, "People always underestimate me, but if you stick around long enough, good things will come to you." Let's take her word for it, accent and all.